the number one film for me that shaped my experience with the Oscars is a big one. It's Shakespeare in Love from 1998. So this is what I think the movie that changed everything for the Oscars. Directed by John Madden, starring Joseph Fiennes, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Jeffrey Rush. IMDb plot summary: the world's greatest ever playwright, William Shakespeare, is young, out of ideas, and short of cash, but meets his ideal woman and is inspired to write one of his most famous plays. So this is a film that nominated for 13 Oscars, won 7, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, Best Actress, Best Original Screenplay. All of these upsets in my mind, and I can get into a little of that later. But I'll talk about my history with the film, and then the Oscars slice of it. So I saw this film when it came out, thought it was fine. It was fun. It was heartfelt, kind of a romantic comedy. You know, I'm a huge William Shakespeare fan. I've been throughout my entire life. And I love how this movie very cleverly works in inspirations that Shakespeare had for all these different plays. There's like if you're walking down the street and there'll be like a line drop of a famous quote from Shakespeare that he hears from someone, plot elements that are happening to him. He ends up working into various aspects of his plays. I mean, the plot is basically kind of like a Romeo and Juliet cross of Twelfth Night. So you can really see how he was inspired. And at the time, that was a clever thing. I mean, in a way, this approach has been ripped off a lot of different times now. There's like a really bad TV movie about J.K. Rowling where, you know, you can see like she has a friend with red hair. Oh, that's going to be Ron. Or there's like a J.R.R. Tolkien biopic that is a lot of the same things where it's like, oh, look, this guy looks like a hobbit. I'm going to write hobbits in my book. And in fact, there was a great USC student film at the time called George Lucas in Love that was about George Lucas at USC as a student and what inspired him for Star Wars. Fantastic movie. Actually, I'd recommend that too. And then YouTube. So I liked it. It was really fun and enjoyable. But, you know, this was a year where, Saving Private Ryan was the film that was the one that everyone thought would be the winner. Film I also really liked at the time. I thought it was kind of a foregone conclusion that this was going to win. You know, this is another one of Stevens' years, and the picture's great. And it, again, sort of like that Apollo 13. Not that it's a true story, but it's like true events told incredibly well. Now looking back, I mean, there are a lot of things that just the art of filmmaking there is just on fire on all cylinders, especially that first 15 minutes D-Day invasion. I mean, some of the best, war scenes that has ever been shot. So it kind of deserved to win for that. But lo and behold, Saving Private Ryan lost. Shakespeare in Love won that year. And I remember at the time as a kid staying up late because I was older now, I was a senior in high school, seeing, wait a second, like what just happened? Like what? Like being shocked in like a way of like, wait, there's something about this doesn't seem right. And this actually then started this kind of path for me of like trying to pull back the veil, being like, hold on, something must have been going on here. There's no way this movie, which I did like, right, beats out Saving Private Ryan. And I did a lot of research on the internet, reading a lot of articles and starting to peel back the veil on how Oscars actually get given to people. And then it's a lot about politics. And when I mean politics, I don't mean, right versus left kind of politics, but internal Hollywood insider politics. Yep. And that's when I started realizing, there's like Oscar campaigning that people do that is very sleazy to try to get their movies to win. And then at the same time, like take down other movies. This was the year that I sort of realized that a lot of these things were at play. And actually too, not only was it kind of me that was realizing this, as a fan, but really this is the moment I think that a lot of people in Hollywood realized that the awards could be used as a vehicle for monetary gain. Right. And not that, look, people cared obviously about the Oscars all the time. Like Best Picture was something all the studios would campaign for, but the campaigns would start around the Oscars and the campaigns wouldn't involve the talent as much. The talent would promote the movie, but they wouldn't necessarily promote the Oscar race. Mm-hmm. And it was Harvey Weinstein, who, by the way, this was the only Oscar he's ever won, was for this movie got on the stage. Got on the stage as a producer. He, as folks may or may not know, was an independent film producer, founded Miramax, an independent distribution company in the late 70s with his brother, that at this time had grown to be acquired by Disney and was a major powerhouse on the independent film market in terms of finding up and coming stars like a Quentin Tarantino. But then also they realized that you could take a small budget independent movie and by giving it an Oscar win or putting Oscar buzz around it, could double, triple, quadruple the box office take. So they saw this not as a way to honor a film for its artistic merits or importance. They saw this as simply a way for them to make a return on their investment in the film. And this movie, especially that year, the Harvey Weinstein machine and concept was firing on all cylinders. They were trying to take down Saving Private Ryan by talking about how, the movie's super cheesy. The first 15 minutes are great, but the rest of it kind of sucks. Sending out their actors to do press way before the Oscar even started, really pushing Gwyneth Paltrow out there as like the new ingenue. They would do things like hold screenings. So yes, obviously there's screenings of films that the Academy would do for voters, but they figured, a bunch of voters are really old and these voters are in retirement homes. Let's go to the retirement homes, set up projectors and show the movies to these old people. And maybe this is the only movie that they see because they're not going out to the movies. But if we bring the movie to where they are, or they were taking them to Aspen, right? A bunch of the Academy goes skiing every winter. Let's bring a projector and have free screenings and parties at Aspen because that's where the voters are. So they were really like trying very heavily to get this film all that their wins. And, the wins, I think, are pretty outrageous. I mean, you look at Judi Dench, who won for Best Supporting Actress. She played Queen Elizabeth, was in this movie like 6 minutes, 4 minutes, barely in the movie. Performance fine, whatever, but not amazing. Paltrow, who, does a decent job in the film, but, she was up against Blanchett, right, for Elizabeth. Much better performance as an actress. And clearly, like I said, the Best Picture win was just a shock and just outrageous. So to me, I think this helped me pull back the veil, right, on maybe this thing is actually more about self-aggrandizement and money than it is at all about artistic merit. And that has been how I've looked at the Oscars ever since this award. Like this sort of blew it up for me. And I also do think that this was a turning point in Hollywood as well, where the studios started realizing, maybe we don't need to make those Cuckoo's Nests, those Apollo 13s, those even Bravehearts or Titanics, these like big budget studio Oscar pictures. Instead, we can just fund some of these little indie movies at fraction of the budget and then do the Weinstein method to get them now awards buzz, turn a profit, and then boom, maybe they win the award, maybe they don't. But now we're making movies specifically for awards, which was part of Miramax's business model. And I think Hollywood then took that business model. And I think that is why the Best Picture winners, it took about 10 years, I think, to really become in effect. But you see this shift gradually. And then I think for me, the major turning point moment too is the Hurt Locker's win was a major turning point, where then after that, it's all these indie little movies that barely anyone sees, that don't cost a lot of money, that then are made only to win Oscars. And maybe they do, or maybe they don't, but you lose out on these. Again, that year from 75, those were all major studio pictures, Cuckoo's Nest and Jaws and Nashville. And these were all amazing films. And there were bigger budgets and the studios were making them. And now the studios aren't, because they realize we don't need to fund these types of films and produce good 4-quadrant popular good movies. We can just do some unpopular stuff that gets forgotten about in 5 years. Who cares? We can win an Oscar and return a profit. So I do think this is a major turning point. And the reason why I feel the Oscars honestly are stuck in the rut that they are, in terms of no one cares because no one sees the movies, because they're not making the movies that people care about anymore to win awards, because it's not as economically viable. But, just getting back to the film and to end it on this, I do still think the film is fun. Like I rewatched it again. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I enjoy it. It's not a bad movie. It's something that I really do wish was more of a hidden gem from the 90s, like a movie that wasn't an Oscar winner that people don't really talk about too much. We're like, oh, you should see this. It's kind of a cute, fun, romantic, drama/comedy. And then you watch it under that lens and it's still great. It's a fun movie, good, lighthearted. But once you start looking at what it did, I think, in the industry, and then also to my own love of the award show, I think that's where you start seeing the negative impacts that it had on just the Oscars all up. And I don't really know if they can ever recover from this path that now they put themselves on, the studios, frankly, which is pretty sad. But I'll stop my rant on that. But yeah, that's Shakespeare in Love for me. Had to be my number one. I'll never forget that moment. Be like, wait, what? Like, why did that just happen?
Yeah, tons to chew on here. I have lots of thoughts too. So let's put a pin on that so we can finish our list. But on the movie itself, though, I have tried to watch this movie twice, and I've actually gone to sleep.
Really?
Somewhere in the 3/4 mark. I've never finished the movie. Actually.
Even now, you haven't finished it?
No.
Wow, really?
Make it to the end.
Wow.
Which is, yeah, I mean, it's not, like you said, it's totally fine and entertaining and sweet and what have you. I don't know, maybe because I watched it much after, so maybe a little bit of everything you said about Weinstein and sort of, how it changed the landscape is very much present in my mind, which distracts me from the movie, perhaps. So that's probably one thing.
Yeah.
Other thing is, so unlike The Favorite, which, plays with period drama and brings it to a contemporary setting, I think this movie fails at that in my mind. Like, it's trying to, like, I would much rather see a Merchant Ivory version of this movie that's done beautifully, done well, and is, nuanced. And yeah, you could use the word stagey, but I think his movies their movies are actually quite fresh, like Howard's End and Remains of the Day, etc. They all spark a lot. They crackle, even though they are sort of steady. But there's something sort of, I don't know, genuine and authentic about that, at least to me, versus this movie is that, but also trying to be kind of a contemporary rom-com. And I don't think it quite works in the performances and how bright and colorful everything is. It sort of looks like a school play to me. Which is maybe the point too, to a degree, because it's kind of a meta thing happening with the play itself. But I don't know. I sort of disengage. Maybe that's what happens.
Okay, interesting.
With this movie. So one day I will finish it. I'm sure.
Okay. We'll have to put it on my list again to get you to finish it for a future episode. Best Ben Affleck performances. I'd put that. He's fantastic in this movie, I think. He's so great. Ben Affleck.
He is great in this.
He's so great in this. Yeah. I mean, I think definitely like what you said, they're trying to, they're making it contemporary by bringing in a lot of like the 90s romantic comedy tropes of everything, being very well lit, extra colorful. Like it's a very postmodern take as well on Shakespeare, which, at the time was fresh. I think they hadn't been doing the 10 Things I Hate About You or the She's the Man, like bringing Shakespeare into the contemporary age. I do think this movie started a lot of that. But it is hard to disassociate all the stuff that I was kind of ranting about there with the film. But because I saw it before all that, I'm still able to kind of go back and just see the movie on its own merits, which I do think it's, the complicated thing about this movie, it's not like Crash, which is a movie that won Best Picture and is just not a very good film on any level. Even at the time, it was very weak. This, I do think as a film stands up. It just, bears the weight and the burden of, all the things that I talked about in that rant. So I understand it'd be hard for you to come out to it now and ignore all of the Weinstein elements.
Yeah, but
it's hard to put those aside.
A minor point. I think to me, the movie just doesn't work. It's fun. Like I said, I think it's trying either be, She's the Man or be Howard's End. Is sort of how I feel about this.
I see. Yeah.
It just doesn't work. But it's not bad. It's fine.
Yes.
That's how I think about it.
So if you were in the Academy in 99, you went to vote for it then?
No, definitely.
Okay.
Who else was nominated?
Or 90, sorry, not 99, 98. It was Elizabeth, great movie. Saving Private Ryan, like I mentioned. Thin Red Line, fantastic. And then Life is Beautiful, which is a film I didn't like at the time and don't think is aged well, but, pretty decent overall crop of films. Not an embarrassing selection by any means, but definitely one where Shakespeare in Love, I would put on as one of the weaker films nominated that year easily.
Definitely. I will say in a subversive way, though, there is a tiny part of me, not on the merit of the movie for sure, but the fact that all these sort of macho war movies don't win and this sort of rom-com kind of movie wins, there is a part of me that cheers for that, because it doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And, a bajillion war movies done by men have won several awards. So there is a part of me in retrospect that sort of cheers that, but that's the only thing I cheer about this movie.
Yeah, that was actually a lot of Harvey Weinstein's PR at the time to knock Saving Private Ryan. There was even things he talked about, well, like, oh, women don't like that movie. That's a war movie. Like, we should be nominating things that are more, four quadrant movies that women would get behind, which is even a sexist statement in and of itself. I mean, just because you're a woman doesn't mean you don't like Private Ryan and would automatically like Shakespeare in Love. But that was a lot of what his narrative was going to be. Like, oh, we, lighthearted movies, like they never win. Look at this little movie that could, was a lot of his, the PR campaign that he was running at the time, which again, clearly did work. And is still just an infamous Best Picture win. I feel like that we're still being talked about today.
For sure.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.